Um, what is your view on, does the character in the movie, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Ah, does the character in the movie has any influence on the movie? And I'm not saying you should not do anything, but I keep flickering. Like sometimes I'm in a conversation and I see my what I speak is not what I intended to do, and I flicker out like, why did it came out like that? And sometimes I have the feeling like I'm not saying you should do anything, but it feels like everything is already um how you say, done as it is, because I keep flickering and I'm like from the person to the seeing, that's kind of things.
Joe, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So, this is such a lovely question. It really is. Does the character affect the movie? Um, I know the answer, but it takes a while to establish the right way to say it. So, what I would say is this: is all of the things that we do, all of the things we strive towards, all of the things we try to create, almost none of them work out. Almost none of them work out. They go along on this thing, and you feel like they're working out because good things happen and some bad things happen. But it's like if I look at all the things I've tried to create in my life, one of them was definitely not for a very long time sitting here talking to you lot, or living in Thailand, or whatever else is going on in my life. It's almost none of it is planned. The separate self kind of, it's like the clown that takes the bow. Like, I claim the good things. Yeah, I'm sure this is what I was planning, but it rarely is a direct line. And I sometimes talk a little bit about this in the self-help field, where you have all people who've achieved some success teaching other people how to do it, but there's almost no one replicates it. They just do something else that's also successful or not. So I really started to see that we don't really have, on some level, we don't have a capacity to affect the movie, but we really enjoy affecting the movie, right? We really enjoy trying to affect the movie because it feels so real in the short term. We have observations like, I wanted to do this call, so I booked this call, and you wanted to be on the call, and you booked the call, and here you are. That is concrete evidence that all of us here affected the movie. But if you step back from that, right, who birthed you? What makes you interested in this subject? Did you choose that? Did you sometimes say, you know what? I think I want to be interested in something to do with, like, we're not. I am more and more convinced that the depth of relationship between the separate self that we identify as and pure consciousness is so unfathomable that it's just pure beauty. It's just purely beautiful. And one of my personal views, which I tend to not share as much in this context because I don't want to create belief systems, but I believe that the absolute is this pure consciousness that's divulged into a billion sentient experiences over eons so it can experience absolutely everything. And if whether you're a stillborn baby or you live to 120 with 5 generations, you didn't choose it. It's just the absolute non-personally exploring every facet of a sentient being, including all animals and everything else, to know itself. Because the sum of all of that is pure consciousness experienced,
Mm.
right? So, and this is a speculation, but before divulging into all of these appearances, it just knows itself as consciousness. Then, by divulging into everything, it gets to know itself, Satchit Ananda, the bliss of knowing oneself. But it's a billion different experiences, of none of which are in control. But they're all equally valid and they're all equally beautiful, right?
It
So,
feels like that. I have to say, it feels like that. It gets tricky in situations where you might hurt other people or your emotions, and then it's like to see like, okay, but that's also a character, but you as an separate entity feel those things, and then it's like, okay, you try to, but let's say you try to relieve that, and then you just see other words flash and you're like, oh, like that's what I mean. You're like, I sometimes flicker like, oh, from being the actor to seeing what's happening, and it's like, wow, okay, without judgment, like, oh, that came as a surprise, and then it feels like I think this was already set to go like that,
yeah,
because
I think in the, I think I love what you said there. I think in the short term, like it doesn't have to be one or the other. In the short term, there clearly is a capacity to be of benefit, right? And this is very, very powerful to know this. So my brother has a mental illness. He's been in the hospital now for the last 3 years, but it's been on and off for the last 30. And I used to try and affect the path of his life. And it used to be exhausting. I used to go and live with him, help him with get off medications, do exercise and stuff like that. And all what used to happen is it would hurt me. You know, you've got a flywheel spinning at 100, one at 30. We both end up at 60, and then I'm suffering, and he's a little bit better. And then as soon as I leave, he goes back to form, goes back to whatever he's doing and with his path in life. But what I do realize is that I have a conversation with him almost every day. I have a little joke with him. He has a bit of a funny. He feels connected and he goes on. So being compassionate to people in our lives, being of benefit, not holding on to strong arguments, being ego free. Hey, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I didn't mean to do that. All of these compassionate, benevolent actions is part of being awake, right? That one of the greatest signs of accomplishment when it comes to following these paths is you just become a more compassionate person for others. You just do. But that's not the same as trying to rescue someone's life, right? Because then that's mind coming in. And it may be that that's the beauty of this paradox, that part of your own awakening is realizing you can't even help yourself really, right? But in the short term you can, right? So with me, I'm diabetic. I do everything I can to help myself as much as I can to not be diabetic, but I can't stop myself being hit by a car tomorrow, right? And I can't stop the causes and conditions that appeared that made me diabetic. And even if people say, well, you shouldn't have eaten McDonald's, well, I didn't make McDonald's appear in my environment. Like, do you know, like where's the line? There isn't one. So I approach it like I don't know what's going to happen. And some things happen in my life that I could never, ever predict, ever, ever. Some good, some bad. And I just feel like I'm not really doing this. I have this little bit of capacity to influence 4 or 5 things local to me, but that scene is not anything I have control of. If I was to put you in a room and you can turn the TV on, you can tidy up, you can make a sandwich, great, you've got free will. But who put you in the room? How did you end up there? Who built the room? Do you know what I mean? It's like that. It's and I'm also starting to, so one thing I will add is that, and this is not something which there's a little bit of ego that can be involved in this, but I do think dancing with yourself as practitioners of non-duality does provide something in life that's supremely beneficial regardless of what appears. I sometimes say that when you start to love what is, what is becomes what you love. So if I live in a crappy council estate, which I used to, I grew up on one, and I don't like it, or let's say that I start to say, you know what, this is how I am. I love it here. I'm just going to love this. Just doing that starts to create the field for other possibilities because now you're at peace. So I do think there's a little bit of a. I wouldn't want to own it because it could get very, what's that, law of attraction type vibe. You know, I'm not saying if you really think hard about having something, it will appear. I don't subscribe to that at all. But I do think that if you develop beautiful relationships with your friends, family, and surroundings, even if you're not engaged fully, that alone creates a beautiful world. Because what is a beautiful world other than a series of beautiful experiences that you're having with everything you interact with? So that's what I would say. This practice alone, I'll sum it up by this: the absolute, in all of its wisdom, appears to have given the separate selves the capacity to make peace with everything by knowing its true nature. And when you do that, how can the world be more beautiful than everything as it is?
Mm.
So yeah, but keep trying to affect it. It's fun.